We're alive. I want to start off right now by wishing everyone a happy Friday. I Congratulations, you made it. It's time for the weekend. Uh, but if you're in real estate, there's no such thing as the weekend. Um, Ronald, my man, welcome to my door knocking extravaganza. So this is going to be a very light lunch and learn, guys. I keep this very casual. If you any questions you have, anything that comes to mind, please feel free to comment below. Interact with one another. Let's have some fun with this. So, not much, man. I walked a really nice house in Garland today. It was a dump. I took my life into my own hands. It was one where the agent was like, it needs everything. And the thing is that the whole it needs everything. I've learned, like, when you're in real estate, what's going on, Mike? The thing with real estate, and you guys all know this, you're agents and investors, it's just like when someone's like, it needs everything, it's on a scale from it might need a little paint, maybe some HVAC work, to you take your life into your own hands when you go there. And so this one was like a 6 on that scale. It was like, oh my God, like what was going on here? On the outside, you're like, okay, cool, like minor roof damage, foundation seems to be okay, nothing overly concerning. And I should have known something was wrong when I had to remove a brick from the front door. And from there, it was just like, oh Lord, wow. So yeah, it was an interesting one. So that was the start of my Friday. But now we're gonna get into door knocking. And so for those, you guys know that if you've been in the group, you've door knocking has been my pet project for 2020. It's something where my background is in marketing, so digital marketing and being able to put your offer in front of people. So whether it's Instagram, Facebook ads, Google ads, different types of techniques to market yourself. It's something that's a huge passion of mine that I've done for years, for tons of real estate agents, for different companies all around the world. But now, as I get into real estate, the one thing that I'm noticing is door knocking has become a lost art. And when I talk to agents and when they talk about things, a lot of it has to do with no system. And so I've gone all over the country to different conferences and things like that. And I've started to learn some best practices from the different industries. So for those of you who are familiar with, door knocking and whatnot, the industries that are super big in door knocking are roofers, solar, direct TV, pest control is a really big one. And so I went to a conference in Salt Lake City to learn from these guys. And what I've done is I've put together a system that we use for our team that has really helped when we go out there. And so there's 7 steps that you have to go through when it comes to door knocking. And so there's the pre-approach, the approach, the intro, the needs analysis, the demo, the walkthrough, the closing. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then the 7th part is actually the pre-approach comes at both sides. So it comes at the beginning and it comes at the very end. What's going on, Mike? Hello. You're all the way up in Michigan. So the pre-approach comes twice, and that gives us our 7 steps. And so let me break this down. We'll go part by part. And again, as you guys have questions, feel free to mention them in the chat. I'll get your questions answered. Talk amongst yourselves as well. So the pre-approach, again, it's 2 parts. So the pre-approach is before you go into a neighborhood and at the very end. And so we'll get to we'll handle it in sequence. So the pre-approach is you need to be knowledgeable of the area that you're door knocking. So for those of you who have been in Savvy for a while, you know that we're very big advocates on pulling lists. So it can be any sort of list. It can be a tax delinquent list. For real estate agents, it could be FSBOs, it could be expireds, because the clustering phenomena that we talk about is birds of a feather flock together. So there are certain neighborhoods that are better based on the data. The data will tell us it's a It's you're based on the data. It's a better neighborhood to be in than others. And so what I mean by that is, the data will guide you as to which neighborhood. So a lot of people are like, well, what's the best neighborhood? Well, let the data guide you. Get a tax delinquent list, get a FSBO, get some sort of list, and figure out where you're seeing most of those houses. Or if you're a real estate agent and you work a specific area, let that be your guiding light. Let that be your foothold. And don't door knock specifically just those houses. Door knock everything within a specific area. And the reason why I say that is if you're looking for motivated sellers, distressed sellers, whatever you want to call them, whatever the flavor of the week is, but you want to door knock everybody. And the reason why that is that, us, we work a lot of tax delinquent lists, people who are behind on their property taxes. And just because house A is delinquent on their taxes doesn't mean that house B isn't in some sort of way. And remember, the people that we're going after, are not going to come to you. So the second they fall behind on their property taxes, they're not going to raise their hand and say, I'm going to call, my local real estate agent and ask them to sell their house. I'm not going to call my local real estate investor and ask them to sell my house. Mike, you get these lists from your county's tax assessor collector's office. You ask them for the delinquent tax rolls, and they will give them to you. Go into the video section of the group, and there are tutorial videos in there on how to find them and what to ask for. And so this is why we want to go to every single house within a certain neighborhood. And the reason, and I guess to kind of double back once real quick, the reason why I'm a huge advocate for door knocking over things like cold calling, mail, is I want you guys to think about it from this perspective, is the people that we're targeting, they are being hounded by bill collectors. And so if any of you that are on here have ever been behind or late on a bill, I don't even answer phone numbers from numbers that I don't know. Like if they're outside the area, I don't answer them. So think about this, is that not only are you 1 in 20 or 30 people that's calling on these people from one reason or another, but they're not going to answer. So you're at the end of the longest line. The same thing goes with your mail. They're not going to, the odds of them reading your mail and looking at your mail are very slim. So if you can sidestep that noise and be that friendly, familiar face and provide a solution and be there on their front door, this is an opportunity for you to win where others are going to lose. It's that simple. And so that's why once you identify an area, knock the entire area. I mean, it takes longer to walk the neighborhood than it does to actually knock on the door. Most of these people aren't going to be home. And a lot of times people aren't going to be mean to your face. People are keyboard warriors. They would much rather send you derogatory text messages or curse you out on the phone, for one reason or another. But people are generally pleasant when you get there. And so the other thing that you want to do, so you don't sound like a foreigner in the area, and it doesn't take too much information, but you want to do a pre-approach. So learn the neighborhood, figure out what schools are there, figure out what houses are going for. So if you're a real estate agent, if you're an investor, this is information that you want. Knowing that houses of a certain size are selling in a certain range. Obviously, we don't know what the house is going to sell for individually, but you want to seem knowledgeable about the area, because one of the things that I'll get into is the scripting of it. But you want to seem as local as possible and as familiar with the area. So if you are new to door knocking, and door knocking is going to be something new that you are going to implement, start in an area that you are familiar with. And a lot of times I recommend just door knocking your own area to generate that confidence. So a lot of times people have this mindset that they're invading someone else's space. If someone doesn't want to come to the door, they'll tell you it's not a good time, and it's, oh, okay, cool. Be on the way. You have to remember that if someone breathes some fire at you, it's not you they're upset with, it's something else. And that's their problem. They have to deal with that. And so there's just this certain apprehension that people get. And, remember, anxiety is just an imagined outcome that hasn't happened yet. Fear is real and present danger. So, the pre-approach is researching the neighborhood, learning the ins and outs. Is it close to certain things? The more knowledgeable you sound about a certain neighborhood, a certain area, the more receptive people will be when they talk to you. To be able to talk to a current event or something in that area, it just generally breaks down people's walls. So that's the pre-approach. So if you have questions on the pre-approach, throw them in the chat. I'll get them answered as soon as possible. But then we're going to move into the approach. And so the approach is, this is a script used to gain permission for them to show you, to get them to show you more. And so, and what I can do is I can post one of the scripts that we use, and I will read you the script that we actually use for our team. Okay. And so there is a method to the madness when it comes to the approach. So the approach, you're going to go knock on the door, knock on 3 times. Don't sit there and pound. Don't do anything crazy. When you knock on the door, then what happens is you're going to take about 2 to 3 steps back. And so the reason why you take 2 to 3 steps back when you're knocking on a door is you seem less threatening when you take a couple steps back and then turn to the side. So for me, those of you, a lot of you haven't seen me in person. A lot of you on here have seen me in person. I'm 6'3", 240 pounds. I am rather intimidating if you're a smaller person and you see me, you're like, whoa. Either way, you're taken back by this large Shrek-looking figure that's sitting at your door. So for me, it's super important that I take a couple steps back. I turn to the side. I smile, always seem happy to be there. And then just speak in a very relaxed tone of voice. So this is a big thing. You might have to do some breathing exercises, just calm yourself down. Because if you seem overly excitable and weird, you're going to put someone who wasn't expecting you to be there on edge. Okay, so that is the first part of the approach. So is it good to know if most of the people are renting homes or if most people are the homeowners in the area? That does help a little bit, again, because that speaks to you being knowledgeable. So if I were to knock on your door and be like, hey, Mike, are you the homeowner? No, I actually rent here. You know what? That's crazy. I've talked to a bunch of people in the area here, and that seems to be the prevailing theme, that most people in this area are renting. Who is? And then this is where you get into the good question asking, because you can still form rapport and build a relationship with this guy. And I'll explain why it's important to get deeper in those questions asking. So, but Mike, you're exactly right. It's good to have that knowledge, but it doesn't matter. Okay, it does not matter at all, because this system even works for going to condos and apartment complexes, and I'll tell you why here in a little bit. And so, after we've gone through that ritual, when we knock on the door, so knock 3 times, take 2 steps back, turn to the side, and smile. Remember, less threatening. So the next thing that we're going to say, as far as on the approach goes, is, "Hi, you must be the homeowner." So we are going to assume that they are someone of importance. Okay, whether they are or not, we're going to assume that they're someone of importance. And so you can say who you are, introduce yourself, and then what we say, and this is why it's important to do the pre-approach and research the area. I've been sitting with families in, say the city, say the subdivision, say the neighborhood. So here in Dallas, depending on the area that you're in, saying the subdivision matters because there's a certain status ascribed to it. So for example, our office is in an area called Uptown, and but near an area called Turtle Creek. And so to people who are in this specific area, it means something to call out that area. So, hi, I work with people in Uptown. I work in XYZ. You want to seem as local as possible, even if you're not. Again, this is why the pre-approach is so important. And so, I've been sitting down with families in insert neighborhood and letting them know what their house is worth in the current real estate market. So you're providing a service. Not asking them if they want to sell, don't care. We'll get to that. And so, I was just talking with, if you have talked to someone in the area, whether good, bad, or otherwise, say their name, because the neighbors probably know who they are. If you haven't, that's okay. Just insert a broad term. I've just been talking with families in the neighborhood. People can see through whether or not you've been talking to other people. So do not lie, okay? Do not ever be disingenuous when you're at the door. And so then what you said is, I was just talking with, and again, neighbors' names, and wanted to be sure to catch you for just a minute, and then you just get into some question asking, have you lived here very long? Yeah, great. And then what you do is just call out, let them know what you're up to. So great. I'm trying to see 30 homeowners today. It only takes a few minutes to explain, so I'm curious, if you were to sell your home, would it be in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years or more? And, so here's the thing. If you hear an objection, just smile, and then step back and respond with, and so the approach, generally you have to say it twice. So there's a first approach and a second approach. If any of you guys have had a person who's called you or knocked on your door, they say something and you're like, wait, who are you? Say that again. And so we get into the second approach. So yes, the approach happens generally twice. Sometimes you can break through right away. So the second approach then goes for, I'm sorry, I guess you haven't heard about me. And that's okay. That's fine. I just showed up. And then you say, hi, I am blank. Say who you are, what the name of your organization is. So if you're a realtor, I'm a realtor with Keller Williams Realty. I am an investor with, this is my company, whatever. That's totally fine. And then what you say is, I work with people in this area. And, I'm educating the neighborhood on what their house is currently worth. You're providing a service. Lead with value, come from contribution. Those of my KW family know come from contribution is a big thing. So I'm letting them know what their house is worth. Everyone I've met's been really friendly. Let them know everyone's been really friendly. Why do we let them know that everybody's really friendly? It lets them know, don't be mean. Don't be a dick. Don't be mean. Everyone I've met has been really friendly. Just as long as I don't take up too much time. What have you done here as part of the script? You're acknowledging that their time is valuable and you don't want to take up too much of their time. And then it's just like, but do you have a place where we can sit down? And then if they hesitate, if they feel weird, be like, you know what, that's fine. We can talk outside. So that's the approach. That's the two ways the approach. All we're trying to do with the approach is gain buy-in. This is very low pressure. This is very low pressure. So again, we're going to break this down. Like I said, I'll post the script that we use in the group. So don't worry about taking notes. And I want you guys just to interact and listen to me right now. So with the approach, we'll take it from the top and then we'll move on. So we've got knock on the door 3 times, knock, 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 step back, turn to the side, smile, and then relax, talk slowly, talk calm, be in control, be confident of what it is that you're going to say. And then you just say, again, hi, you must be the homeowner. I am Kyle with blank. I've been sitting down with families in the, uptown area and letting them know what their house is worth. I was just talking with Matt and Meg, and, I just wanted to be sure that I caught you for a minute. How long have you lived here? Great. Actually, I'm trying to see 30 homes today. So it's a busy day for me. So I won't take up too much of your time. But, real quick, how long have you, lived here? Sweet. If you were to move, when would you? 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? And the script is really important to drill. And the reason is it gives you a center point. So anytime you get thrown off, to come back to the script of like, did I ask them this? And it's done for a reason. It's done for a purpose. This all builds on itself. And so again, if they're like, wait, who are you? And I'm like, sorry, I guess you haven't heard of me yet. I've been around here, but we haven't had a chance to talk. I'm Kyle. I'm with Keller Williams. I work here in Dallas. I'm just educating people in the neighborhood on what their house is currently worth. Everyone I've met's been really great. So, I'm happy that we actually got a chance to talk. Just as long as I don't take up too much of your time. Do you have a place we can sit down real quick? I can ask you a couple questions. Great. And now we're in. So again, it's very low. It's very, less invasive right now, because if they don't want to let you in, if now is not a good time, the one follow-up question is, hey, we're not overcoming an objection, we're acknowledging. So then we just say, you know what, I probably caught you at a bad time. I understand that you weren't expecting me to show up today. When's a good time for me to come back and we can talk? And let them guide you. Acknowledge. And you know what, because then, what they might say is, well, I'm not interested in, I'm not interested. You're like, not interested in what? I'm just here to let you know what your house is worth. And if they don't care, that's fine. But again, generally people are going to be nice. They're going to give you their ear. They're going to let you know. And we're going to get into, at the very end, some questions that we can go through when it comes to not just, as far as not necessarily objections, but what we call it is thought disruption. So we're not objection handling. We don't get objections. We see opportunity and objection. So we're disrupting thought. So now the whole part. So now we've gotten the pre-approach down, we've gotten the approach down, and we get into the introduction. And the introduction is very simple. This is where we break down what it is that we're talking about. And again, this script is tailor-made for my team, so it might not work for you, but if you're one of our coaching students or things like that, we can help you work through that. But like I said, for the introduction, here we go. You're standing in front of them. You're going to remind them one more time. Like I said, my name is Kyle. I'm with Keller Williams. And now here's the first thing that you do. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. Did you notice that in the pre-approach and the approach, at no point in time did we ever stop to ask their name? There's a reason for that, is we want them to listen. We want to stay in control of the conversation the entire time. And so as soon as we've gotten to the introduction, we know that we have buy-in. Now we take permission to ask their name. And so what you say then is, I've really enjoyed working with families in, again, say the neighborhood, say the area. Be local, make it sound like you are providing a service for that area. Again, so if you're a real estate agent and you have a specific pocket that you're in, yes, speak proudly of the area that you work. So because you want to feel connected, people do business with people that they know, like, and trust. Okay. And so let them know, you want to continue to break down those walls, and this is a really great neighborhood. From there, you just say, I'm sitting down with homeowners and talking to them about when they might want to sell in the future. There's no obligation on your part. I'm just educating the neighborhood about the market. That's all you're doing, is you're just educating. You're providing a service. You're letting them know I don't care whether or not you have to sell. I'm giving you value, because I can't tell you enough how many times, a lot of times people have no idea what their house is worth. For the agents who have been in here for a while, who have been in the game, a lot of times it's like, according to Zillow, my house is worth this. According to Redfin, my house is worth this. According to my neighbor Joyce across the street, that's how much, such and such sold their house for. It's crazy. All sorts of numbers. But you know what? The comps are what the comps are. And what you need to understand is that when people are making a buying decision, typically they have a number in their head. And for all they know, their house is worth exactly what it needs to be for them to move. And if it is, ding, 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 we've got an opportunity to sell it. And you know what? You're right there waiting to be able to help them, waiting to be able to provide the service. And you were nice enough to reach out to them to provide them with the service, instead of being like every other person. Hey, do you or someone are they looking to sell their home? Oh, well, I can market your home and sell it faster in so many days. Like every other agent, you sound like everybody else. If you're an investor, it's the same way. Hey, I saw that you're on the pre-foreclosure list. Do you want to sell? Just crazy things like that make you sound like everybody else. Don't sound like everybody else. Again, come from contribution. Come from a place of being able to help. So that's the introduction. I try not to take up too much of your time. I'm sure you've got a busy day. If you've got a few free minutes, can you give me a quick tour of your home? That's it. That's it. Now we're in the introduction. Like that's right through the introduction. Because your goal then is to just keep asking questions. So we'll take the introduction from the top. So, like I said, my name is Kyle. I'm with Keller Williams. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. Handshake. Or coronavirus elbow. I've really enjoyed working with all the families here in Dallas. It's a really great neighborhood. Yeah, Dallas is a great neighborhood. I'm sitting down with homeowners and talking to them about when they might want to sell in the future. This is no obligation on your part. I'm just in the neighborhood educating people. I try not to take up too much of your time. I know that you've got a busy day. So if you've got a few free minutes, do you mind showing me around your house? And they might feel weird. And that's totally fine. Because now what we're going to get into is we are going to then jump into the needs analysis. The next one. And so the needs analysis is where we really get into this. So now you guys see that we've dedicated the pre-approach, the approach, and the introduction. None of that was really asking any questions of substance. What we were doing there is to gain buy-in and gain trust so we can see more of the house. Okay? And so now we get into the needs analysis. And so this is going to be question asking that leads us to the point of, getting, a further appointment, It's going to lead us to get a listing agreement. It is going to lead to a further interaction that is going to put the ball in our court. Yes, I want to list the house. Yes, I want to know what a cash offer would be for my home. Yes, I want to know this. So you need to build the value up. So now here's where it gets tricky. The needs analysis portion of this is about 20 to 30 questions long. And the reason why we ask so many questions is that we want to use them. We want to get them to open up. So the main purpose of this is open-ended questions. So how or what? Try to stay away from why-based questions. And the reason why we don't want to say why is, well, why not? Just because. Well, why did you do this? Felt like it. How or what are going to be questions that allow you to get several layers deep when we're asking questions. Generally you want to go 3 layers deep, oh, wow, how do you feel about that? Oh, really, what made you do that? So we don't want to get into any terminating type of questions. And so the biggest thing is again, the open-ended questions, but then now we want to ask questions that give us a better insight as to their current situation. So if you're like us and you know that you're in an area that there might be people with certain problems when it comes to their property taxes and being delinquent, ask questions, hey, do you know if there are any liens on the property? Start asking questions that are more about their situation. If you were to move, what neighborhood would you want to move to? What type of home would you want? How many bedrooms would you want? How many bathrooms? What time of year would you prefer to move? Ask all of these different questions that you can ask them to discuss, getting them to the next point in their life. Because remember, guys, one of the main reasons why people are very, very hesitant to sell is because moving a home is one of the most traumatic things a person can go for. It is literally ranked up there in the stress scale with the death of an immediate family member. That is the impact that moving has on someone. It is incredibly stressful. This is also one of the reasons why elderly do not like moving, because in some instances, and this may sound crude, but it can kill them. And it's because, their body has reached an advanced age and they're just, their life is fragile. They're not in the same state of health that they were before. And so the thought of having to pick a new place to move, to pack all of their memories, to allow people into their home to show it, this is a very, very hard thing for them to do. And so the more questions that we can ask, we've got to come from the point of service when we're doing these things, because we need to put them at ease. You need to be able to let them know that if they were decide to work with you in any facet, in any capacity, that you are going to be the one that's going to alleviate any and all of their apprehensions. So that's where this needs analysis is so important. And you know what, sometimes it can be 5 questions, it can be 10 questions, it can be 30 questions, but we want to get to the point where they want to go, so when are we going, eventually, if you ask enough questions, you are going to know that they are at what we call the buying pocket. And what the buying pocket is, it's a term used in sales that someone's ready for you to give the offer, for you to take their money, for you to provide the service, whether it's get a listing agreement, whether it's to get some sort of confirmation that, yes, we are looking to sell within this time frame. Let's go ahead. Let's start looking at properties. Then you can get all of the necessary paperwork. Yes, I would like to explore a cash offer. When can you come back and let me know what that would be? And this is a great way for you to build rapport, to have that FaceTime. It's a lot easier to do business with someone, face to face. Obviously, every form of lead generation that we do is with the intent of getting in front of an actual person. The chance of success and the success rate and the amount that you're able to sell the properties for, whether on the MLS or not, is much greater. And so that is the whole point. So the goal is to build a relationship and to gain more opportunities of just the desired outcome, because you're there as a consultant. You are there to provide more solutions, to provide more options, to be the expert. Once you are the expert, you're no longer there as someone who wants to get something out of the transaction. You're coming from contribution. You're coming from a point of service. Okay. Again, any questions up until this point? If you need me to go back, if you need me to clarify anything, fire away. But we are going to then move into the walkthrough. So we've gone pre-approach, we've gone approach, we've gone introduction. Now our needs analysis. we're going to move on to walkthrough. And where the walkthrough is really important is we are trying to be as efficient as possible. So if you are able to get a walkthrough, whether you're a real estate agent or whether you are an investor, the walkthrough is very key because we need to be able to identify basically the entirety of the house. And I can't tell you how many times people drop the ball when they don't get enough information when they're walking through a property. You know, there's a lot of times when you're trying to figure out how much something is worth. And, you know, for us, we will not make an offer on a home that we do not put our own 2 feet in. That's just not something that we do. We owe it to the seller and the people that we're working with to operate on the best information that we have possible. A lot of times we'll go back with a general contractor of ours just to get a quote. Again, that's an opportunity for us to determine whether or not we want to buy it, and also give the general contractor an opportunity to potentially win a job. You know, it's a win-win. You know, again, come from service, come from contribution for something like that. So the walkthrough, you use the needs analysis checklist, you know, and there, we have a walkthrough checklist as well. And so this is going to give you, you know, proper insight as to where to go. And so when you're doing the walkthrough of the house, you want to make sure that you get good exterior. And so that is checking any of the majors. So you need to, you know, you're going to bust your camera out. You got to take pictures of the roof, foundation, HVAC, and foundation. And so that's when you're walking the perimeter. Also the condition of the outside. You want to know what necessary repairs might, because again, the next time we come back to these guys, we want to be able to tell them accurately. Like, we want to deliver on the information that we said we're going to give. And so you need to do this. And then when you're walking through the house, you're going to take a picture of any anomalies that you see. So if there are cracks, again, you know, settling cracks and taping cracks go vertical and horizontal. Anything that might be foundation is going to be jagged and diagonal. You know, you're going to see it. You're going to notice it in door frames. You're going to notice it in ceilings. There's going to be certain separation. You need to take special note of these things. Then you're going to take a picture of all the bathrooms, all of the bedrooms. You're going to take a picture of the kitchen. You're going to take a picture of the floor. You need to be able to identify exactly what types of repairs need to be made and where it stacks up against the rest of the market. You cannot do a proper CMA, I don't care whether you're an investor or a real estate agent, unless you know what all of the finish outs and the fixtures are. I can't tell you how many times I've seen realtors completely miss the mark on their listing because they thought it was one thing and they didn't take the information that they have and compare it to what's actually in the market. And then, you know, a property ends up sitting for too long. And what that does is now it doesn't get the realtor paid. It puts the seller in a bad situation. And, you know, here we are down the road of we're not providing the right service that we want. And this can all be solved by doing getting the right information on the walkthrough. So the walkthrough is so important. So once we've, you know, gotten all of that, because think about this, if you don't do the walkthrough right, all of the questions that you've just asked on the needs analysis are out the door. All of the time that you've spent trying to get good information are completely blown because you didn't take enough time on the walkthrough to get the information that you need to be able to deliver on the service that you want to provide. So that walkthrough is so important when you're there, is getting all of the necessary information that you need to make the best decision possible. And it makes you look more put together. I can't tell you how many times when people go door knocking, they're not prepared. You're like, what is going on? That's why most door knockers fails, because they don't have a plan, they don't have a process, and they don't have a way to execute on all this stuff. So that's the walkthrough. Now, I went through it quick, but honestly, the walkthrough should take about as long as it took me to, because I mean, you're just there, you're snapping pictures, you just got to know where to look, when to look for any anomalies, look for something that might be dated, look for anything that might prevent the house from being sold for any amount of money. Because again, if you're a real estate agent, what this is going to do is it's going to let you know whether you need to enlist the help of your trusted investor, or if you can put the house on the market. It's going to help you make an informed decision. And the better informed decision that you can make, the less amount of time that you're going to need to spend on it. Because guys, from both sides, the more time that you spend working on a property, the less time you have to do other things. We're all about forward momentum. So, you know, if your goal is to move 100 units in a year, you need to be moving. You need to be really systemized. And so that's why this process that I'm talking about with door knocking is so important. You know, I highly suggest that you come back and watch this video again and take more notes. So now the walkthrough is done. And so now we get into the closing. And so, the closing, like this is where we're going to gain the commitment for a future follow-up appointment, or in the case that you are able to, in some instances, you're able to close it right there. You're able to get the listing agreement. You're able to get the buyer's representation agreement. You're able to, I don't recommend making a cash offer right here. And the reason is that you're not necessarily going to be informed, and you can get yourself into a tough situation if you make an offer right there on the spot. It's tough, especially if you weren't planning on going to that property, you haven't done the necessary homework that you need and been thorough enough. And so I highly advise against that. And so this is where you're going to, gain the commitment for, a next visit. And so this is where you're going to clearly outline what the next steps are, outline the expectations of them between you and that meeting. So the expectations are, all right, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what I need you to do is, can you give me the payoff information from your mortgage? Can you tell me what liens are? Can you show me some properties that you might want to list, talk about? Set them up based on what you go through with the needs analysis. This is going to be homework that you give them. So remember, this is a give and a take now, is that you've gotten to this point to where you're able to close them and set up another meeting. Set some expectations for them, involve them, because now you're in this together. And the more comfortable they are with the next steps in the process, the more effective the next meeting will be, because the next meeting is when we're going to get what we want. And this next meeting, honestly, guys, needs to happen within probably 24 to 48 hours of when you sit down with them. That's how fast the turnaround is, because, your season of time is very small when it comes to working with these guys. So the momentum is only there for so long. So if you're one of those people where you go there and you're like, oh yeah, I'll come back next week, don't even bother. Move fast. So go there one day, be back the next. And so the more comfortable they are with the process and what's expected of them, you're no longer an outsider. Okay? And so that the closing is so huge, in that what you're doing, again, is you're getting buy-in to what the next step of the process will be. Good? Got it? Golden? Good. So be clear in expectations. Set the appointment for the next time of what you're going to cover. Set the agenda right there for what you're going to talk about the next time. And so now the final step is we get into the pre-approach. Remember, pre-approach at the top, pre-approach at the bottom. And where the pre-approach at the bottom comes in is we're going to ask some more questions about, all right, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, this is a great conversation. Before I get out of here, who else do you know that I should talk to in the neighborhood? Or do you have a family member or friend that I can provide this same service to? This is a great time for you to ask for more business. Who else you can help? Who else you can help? Not, do you know someone that's looking to sell? Get that out of your vocabulary. Who else can I help? Who else do you know that I could provide this service for? Because now, remember when we were talking about the pre-approach and we were using that regular approach script, and we were talking about the names of the people that you can list off, this is where you can do it. So yeah, you know what? Yeah, I've got my buddy Matt that I want you to go and talk to. Then you're like, hey, can we give Matt a call? Can you let him know, so that when you get there, you're like, yeah, hey Matt, I'm Kyle, I'm with Keller Williams. Meg sent me over. We were actually just talking about her house. She said that, you actually might be, in the market to sell. I was just asking her if I could, help you, let you know what your house is worth, because apparently she said this is something that you're looking at, or you might be having trouble with X, Y, and Z, because this is where you can let them know, I can help people who are going through a divorce, if they had a loved one that died, if they're in any financial situation. Now remember, if you're using the same list that we do, we're in a neighborhood where people are in certain financial situations. So you already know it. If you can break that wall down and that person will kind of give up the next thing, this stuff snowballs. And the reason why you're able to ask for these things more confidently is because you're face-to-face, not because you're on the phone. You're not asking for anything that you don't deserve at this point. You've given enough value. You've asked enough questions. It's going to be seamless when you just go for the ask of, who else do you know that I should talk to? Is there anywhere else that you think I should go? Let the neighborhood guide you then. You're still going to go to the next door, but now you're coming from a point of, this is a great opportunity for you then to build your database some more, unearth some other opportunities because now you've earned the right. You've made it all the way down to the other pre-approach. This is a great opportunity for you to continue to grow. And also, it's a great piece of homework of, yeah, you know what? I know that you can't think of anybody right now. When we meet again tomorrow, maybe have some of those names and numbers of people that you think I might be able to help, because this is great. I know that you're loving the information that I'm, going to provide you. I'm sure that you know other people that are like that. And remember, birds of a feather flock together. My friends, your friends, our friends and family, they all seem to move at the same time or within a specific given period of time. And there's no better way for you to be that trusted person to help them, when you show up at the door. So again, we'll do a quick recap of everything. The 7 steps to all of this, again, guys, is you've got the pre-approach. The initial approach for when you're going into a neighborhood, seem knowledgeable on the area, or just go to an area that you're familiar in, you can speak confidently and fluently in. From there you go into the approach. The approach is just where you're getting the buy-in to get permission to give them more information. And then the introduction is basically where you break it down for them of, I'm here because I can provide you this. I can tell you what a cash offer might be or what your house is worth by listing it on the market. That's simple. As soon as you get past the introduction and we get the invite to talk to them some more, we do the needs analysis. So this is where the questions just start flowing. Now you're building that rapport, you're building that relationship, you're getting more information about their house, what you can do for them. And again, this is ask 20 to 30 questions. I'm not lying. It's 20 to 30 questions. That seems like a lot, but honestly, in the course of the 40 minutes that this live is going on, we probably could have asked 100. And it's seamless. It comes naturally. So as soon as you're done with the needs analysis, the walkthrough. Again, the walkthrough doesn't need to be very long, but you need to be very thorough in the pictures and the information that you gather when it comes to the home and the seller's situation. Their accommodations, everything that they need. You need to be able to ask those questions and get those figured out on the walkthrough. So pictures, just all this is where the main part of your homework is being done. So it's actually really quick, but you can screw it up super easy. So attention to detail. And then again, the second to last piece is closing. So closing is where we're just getting permission, we're getting the buy-in to come back, we're setting expectations as to what's going to be covered. Remember, 24 to 48 hours. You want to keep building that momentum. If you can't do it in 24 to 48 hours, it's like, well, you know what? Like, it's super important that we do get back together and meet. I want to be able to give you the information that's most important. And so this is where you're going to find out, just how serious someone might be. And then the last piece, again, is that the pre-approach. So that pre-approach, again, this is where we are asking, who else do you know that I should speak to? Who else do you know that I can help? Who else do you know that would benefit from the service that I'm providing to you? Is there anyone else that I can help that, might have gone through a divorce, might have someone die, might have had a medical disaster or something happen to their home? There's a lot of different things that I can do to help. Who do you know? I know most people that I talk to, they know someone that fits into one of these categories, and you want to be the one to help them because you're doing something that nobody else is not. You've gone into the neighborhood, you've gotten out of your car, and you've knocked on the door. And while everyone else is sending mailers, they're sending emails, they're doing Google ads, they're doing Facebook ads, they're cold calling, very impersonal, you're there. And then have some information to leave behind so that they can keep it for themselves or pass it on to someone else. I highly suggest a magnet of a sports team or something that will go into a high traffic area of the home. If they do keep the magnet, 9 times out of 10, they end up on a refrigerator. And I can't tell you how many homes I go in that have a magnet of some real estate agent on there. That should be you, or an investor, whomever. That should be you on that refrigerator. So there you have it, guys. So concludes the door knocking lunch and learn. You've had the 7 steps. We've walked through them. What kind of questions do you have? I'll wait here for a minute. If you don't have any questions, speak now, forever hold your peace. Get on with your day. But what do we got? No questions. I did that good of a job that you guys are going to be able to go out and execute on all of this stuff right away. I mean, that would be incredible. That would be incredible. I hope you guys go out and crush it. Door knocking is one of those things, guys, where you just got to get out there and do it. There's no two ways about it. I can't tell you how many excuses people come up with on not doing it. All of the apprehensions, they think that behind every single door is the character of every horror movie that they have ever seen. Behind every door is every headline of a news story that they've seen. Door knocking is all a mindset. And I can't tell you, door knocking is one of those things where if you do it and you get good at it, you realize there's a lot of good in the world. There's a lot of people who want to be able to help. And so if you come from contribution and you go to provide a service, door knocking is something that's incredibly effective. I know some people who have made tremendous amounts of money. I spoke to an agent in Salt Lake City. His first year, he sold $19 million worth of homes doing nothing but door knocking. And then this last year he did 27 million all by himself. All he had was an assistant to help with some paperwork. So door knocking is an incredibly lucrative thing. If you are a new agent, there's no reason why you should not do some form of door knocking. It is the most low cost thing possible. I can't tell you how many inexperienced people I know try throwing money at this stuff when they don't even know how to market lead gen. They don't even know how to talk to the leads. So there's no better place than to do door knocking and getting a face-to-face meeting. And the reason why that is that people are also more accepting of you not having your acts together when you're door knocking. When you're on the phone, they are way less forgiving when it comes to you not knowing your stuff. But if you're there, they're more understanding, they're more forgiving, and you can build that rapport, and you've got a lot of leeway. So I haven't had any questions. If you do have any questions after this, if you want to go back and watch it, feel free to ask in the chat. I will be answering questions all day long. And again, if this is of super value to you and you want to take this to the next level, you can always reach out to us about our real estate and investment coaching. It's a great program. We go even deeper into door knocking with our students and help them build out a repeatable system to make them successful. So that's all I've got, guys. I hope that you have a great rest of your Friday. I hope you're crushing it this week. I hope you have a better weekend. And we will talk soon. And you know me, I can't close out a video without saying, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. Have a great weekend, guys.